Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks so much. And sometimes when we get about life, we realize how important it is to be able to afford our country to show that we have in our society. So wonderfully engaged people, and age is just a number as we get a chance to talk about the Older Persons Council. We invite you to be part of the discussion 1:30 and shift to our monthly mental health matters where we look at prison rehabilitation. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of the discussion. And I'm always remiss, but Ms. Susan graciously reminds me to tell our people, go ahead to our YouTube channel and see where sometimes we leverage the technology and spend your hard-earned tax dollars. In the studio, it truly is a pleasure not just to have an engaged discussion about our Older Persons Council, but to be able to welcome to the studio the chair, Ms. Lucille Seymour, together with Ms. Deanna Lacloy, former parliamentarian, Ms. Daphne Orrit, and I think they'll agree, a very industrious, intelligent, ambitious young lady who shows just through her very demeanor the respect that we have for elderly and to the deference to our elders. Perhaps just a quick say good afternoon and hello to Miss Cassandra Purway. Sorry, Miss Cassandra. I was going to say it one of these days. Or Ebanks. Every day I tease her about it, and one of these days, maybe it's a Freudian slip. Miss Cassandra, you're lucky I didn't call you Ebanks today. Good afternoon to you, Mom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here, Sterling.
As I'm going to just invite Miss Lucille first, but Miss Lucille, you probably more than most of us know. Miss Cassandra is just so pleasant, so personal, so prompt and professional. She is there. You call in anytime with the youth, but in particular for elderly, just naturally, without any sort of fanfare. She's just willing to stand in the gap and offer up. And she's the kind of people that we want to raise in our society.
And Sterling, that's because she's a George Dahana.
Now, you see, Mr. Clyde said.
And we're odd out today because I'm half West Bear, you're West Bear, Miss Daphne West Bear, Cassandra half, and Miss George, Miss Deanna and myself have to fight hard to hold on for the Georgetown seat. So, but we're happy to be here today. The council with the Department of Children and Family Services have come together to certainly help in advancing the well-being of older persons. But first, I think it is good to say that we want to thank those persons who have gone before to help older persons, like the churches and all the volunteer persons that have helped. And then we've had some not-for-profits that have come together to help older persons. And lastly, but not least, the government now has put in a law, that older persons law. And we really, it's just been a little over 2 years, but we really want to have the older persons know their rights under the law. And the only way that they can do that is to try to get to read it and get it interpreted, and we have done that, and other persons to be able to do that. But today we have specifically two persons. Miss Alice was supposed to have been here, who are older persons. They're here for two reasons. One, they are significant in their own right, what they are bringing to the table as older persons. And the second point is that they're advocates of older persons. And today I have asked them that while we can make accusations on what is not done, we also want to have solutions as to how we can advance the older persons. And of course, we have the Miss Cassandra, who is the head of the unit of older persons at Children and Family Services, and we work closely to get together the Older Persons Council and Children and Family Service to ensure that the law is advanced for them.
Well, as Miss Lucy referenced, Miss Alice Mayco has tendered her apologies, and it just shows you the diligence and the dedication. I think with a bare whisper, she called and said, I did tender my apology, but I want you to know. I'm thinking, it's just that commitment, but that respect even that they afford, and that's the example. As an educator equally, Miss Diana Lucloy, you sit next to your colleague, but you continue to educate, inform, and advocate for all of us. So, good afternoon to you. Any initial thoughts, Mom?
Miss Alice May taught me in first form. I think she was an A-level student at the time. Well, I spent a number of years at the Department of Children and Family Services, and during that time, I think that was when we started to promote the elderly and to put programs in place for them. We always had, for some time, the cottages, the East End cottage, where people from all the districts had to go, really. That was the only cottage for the elderly at the time. So not just the eastern districts, but people from even West Bay were up there. And as we went along, I have to give Mr. McKeever Bush some credit, the Honorable. He listened to us and understood what we were saying and tried to help us along by acquiring other facilities. So we eventually got a cottage in West Bay, which turned out to be the largest facility. And I know that recently they closed the one in East End, and those people are down at West Bay now. I don't know how the Eastern District people are taking that, but I know they're very territorial, and they felt Sunrise Cottage was for North Side and East End. But Cayman is small, and I am certain that a lot of those North Siders and East Enders are related to the West Bayers too. So, North Side for sure. So they'll feel at home, and we are certain that they are well taken care of wherever they are.
Amen. And Ms. Daphne, we look at the contributions, not just today, but as Ms. Lucy referenced, prior, but as Cayman's sort of socioeconomic fabric changes, we see our elderly being continually engaged, but equally they're being sort of accessed by our younger for advice and counsel, for guidance, and sometimes for instruction and discipline. Some would say chastising, but so that they steer the path that keeps us on an even keel, as it were. Not always easy when you get on in years, as it were, because you want to enjoy the grandchildren, you want to travel, you want to tend to your garden, you want to say, hey, you know what, this morning I want to peacefully watch the sun come up and just relax. But the weight of the world sometimes must be on the shoulders of our elderly, who see what lies ahead through their wisdom, but equally their experience, and maybe burden more than some because they understand that time is nigh, as it were. From your perspective, Ma?
Time flies.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I am grateful for is the opportunities that were mine, not only with sitting with my parents, but both sets of grandparents. We spent lots of time together, and it was rarely ever a time that they seemed to be impatient with me. In fact, there was once when I heard my mom say to my dad, she said, "This child, she is so inquisitive." And my father said, "Oh, well, Mama, what do they say? An inquisitive child is a smart child." Well, all I know is this: a lot of what I've learned had come from the elderly, and in fact, only 2 days ago, a daughter and a granddaughter said to me as I was sharing some things with them, "Mother, you need to write a book or books. There's no way we can retain all of this. You need to put this in writing." And I can tell you that my respect for the elderly and my love for the elderly is something which I've known since as far back as I can remember. Not only about having good manners, but you needed to understand that you had to care for them and love them. I won't prolong this, but I'll make this one observation here. Probably 10 years of age, I might have been 10 years of age at the time, and we, the group of us coming to Northwest Point from the town hall school, and some of the children, maybe 2 or 3 of the boys, there's an older man who my mom had told me this, years ago he'd gotten his foot broken, didn't get the proper care, and so he had this limp when he walked. But that man, I knew my mom showed him greatest respect, because she said when she was a little girl, he was best friends with her parents, and he'd come to the house, put her on his shoulder, and just walk around the yard with her. So she loved him. When he came to the house, his food was dished out just like she would have done for the children or my dad. And so as this old man was limping, coming down, he used to do clean, wash for people and do odds and ends. And 3 of the boys started pelting him, not with big rocks, but just pelting him and bullying. And we called it back then being pickasome. And I ran with all the speed I could. I'm not a fast runner, but something happened that day. I ran fast. And I went and I said, Mama, they're pelting Uncle Lambert. You need to do... She was grating coconut. She dropped that. She wiped her hands, and she ran with me until she found them. I didn't know what she was going to say, but she looked at them. Firm, but with love, she said, "I want you to remember this." And she told them about what this gentleman meant to her, how he'd taken her on his shoulders when she was just a little girl. But more than that, she looked at him and said, "Do you know what? 2 people you shouldn't forget. You should never treat them badly. A child and an older person. A child because you were once a child, and you would not have been where you are if people hadn't taken good care of you. And one of these days, if you live long enough, you will get to be an older man like this man is, and you'll need someone to care for you again. I hope you remember what I've said to you." I think they did, but I'll tell you, I did not forget what my mother says. I have a great respect for older persons. And now I have fitted into the group of older persons.
Well, sometimes just looking at you guys, I have to remind myself that you are. But with that, let's pause to take our first break. When we come back, Ms. Lucille, under your tutelage, perhaps, we can take the direction. And I've got an opening question for Ms. Cassandra when we come back. So please, join us after the break.
For over 100 years, more than 5.8 million people across the Americas and the Caribbean have placed their trust in Pan American Life Insurance Group. We have delivered on our promise and have proven that we are more than an insurance company. We are family. To learn more about our first-in-class individual and group life, disability and accident solutions, please visit Pan American International Insurance Corporation at Unit 221, Cannon Place East, North Song Road, Grand Cayman, or contact us at 949-8304 and visit us online at www.palig.com. Pan American Life, people you can trust for life.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
The government claims the cruise berthing facility won't cost us a penny. It will be paid for by the cruise passenger who use it, not by our people or our government.
The fact is, you will be paying. Because government is going to give the consortium development team, led by Royal Caribbean and Carnival, a portion of the cruise revenue that is currently being banked by government.
What's more, we will be repaying them
$450 million.
$250 million more
than what the facility even costs.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
CUC advises customers on Pedro Castle Road in Savannah that they will experience interruptions to their electrical service on Thursday, October 24th between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Areas affected include all customers on Pedro Castle Road from the junction with Sandy Ground Drive, including West Lane, Adams Lane, Charity Lane, Pedro Villas Lane, and all side roads. The Cayman Islands Baptist Church, Pedro St. James, and some customers on Sandy Ground Drive will be affected by this outage. Motorists are asked to drive with caution when using Pedro Castle Road, as CUC will have a number of vehicles and personnel in the area and will be deploying rumble strips and signage to manage the traffic flow. CUC apologizes for this interruption, which is necessary to facilitate required overhead infrastructure upgrades to provide our customers with safe, reliable, and efficient power. For more information on the outage and streets affected, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news. Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And I think, as Ms. Lucille Seymour referenced earlier, all of the different agencies and entities, including the government, will continue to show the great deference, love, respect, but equally the value that we have for our elder in our society is commendable. As the chair of the Older Persons Council, Ms. Lucille Seymour, together with Ms. Daphne Ort, Ms. Deanna Lecloy, and from the Department of Children Family Services. Should we call her Miss Cassandra Ebanks, you think, or Miss Cassandra Fairwan? Should we give her
whichever one she'll answer?
Which she'll answer though? Oh, she is so, you know what, I say it with the greatest love and respect because I truly admire Miss Cassandra's just wonderful disposition and all her team. If I may though, as we start this next sort of round of discussion, something I was thinking of that Miss Daphne has shared earlier, the grandparents and even the parents. Sometimes, I kind of alluded to earlier, the notion that in today's world, the work life, the struggles and challenges, the financial as well as the other obligations we have, make it increasingly difficult for some of us to even have time or find the time to go and visit with our parents. And some of us, sadly, don't even have our grandparents around. Your perspective on that, I mean, we're missing out on so much.
Well, Sterling, this is certainly something that we've seen in our work at Department of Children and Family Services. And as we celebrate Older Persons Month, where we have our calendar of activities celebrating older persons and allowing them to come out and participate in the events, really there is a focus other than just the event. So we have a theme, which is positive aging, and the message behind that we are trying to emphasize and put out to the public and to the community is that we really need to be able to create age-friendly communities in this country. There are a lot of needs for older persons other than activities or, socialization, but they are necessary services that our older persons and their families aren't able to access. So part of the opportunity for us having the platform of Older Persons Month is also just to educate the public that they can take part. There are opportunities for them for the business community to take on new business opportunities, for volunteers, individuals, organizations to take up new volunteer opportunities to help our older persons in the community. Some of the greatest needs really now are things like legal services, residential care for our older person, special needs and disability housing, respite care. But also what we were kind of talking about in the break is that we really want families as well to recognize that they play a great part in the age-friendly communities and how they can dedicate themselves to helping their older persons. We have a lot of families or a lot of older persons where there is nobody to help administrate care to them. And sometimes it's because, their children are working, or some of them just don't have the financial means to do so. But I think as a country, we really need to take a better look at this, and that we are promoting age-friendly communities and that everybody plays a part, whether it's business, employers of those children who have to care for their older family members, businesses, like I said, that could provide, services to older persons, transportation, perhaps special needs transportation, daycare services. There's quite a bit of things that the country needs to focus on.
Ms. Lucille?
I'm glad Ms. Cassandra summed that up like that, and that's what the law is really about, not necessarily being the action in place of this children and family services, but to embrace all older persons. I think the time is ripe that we should know that the older persons are going to double within the next 35 years. We should know that. The research tells us so. The research tells us that people will live longer. Now, people will live longer in different categories. They will be ill, some will be not so ill, but some will be bright and bulbous. And we have to look at the bright and bulbous ones too. We have to ensure that the bright and bulbous play a significant part in the Cayman society. People like Miss Lukloy and Suki and Miss Cassandra, and of course yours truly too, that we also make the contribution that the older persons get a voice, that we reignite in them that they too can also play a part to re-empower themselves, that they also can play a part to be entrepreneurial. And I believe this is where Cayman faults itself, and I'll say that, just me, nobody else, I'll take that forward, that once you become a certain age, you become almost useless to society. But I see the difference. I see that there's no longer retirement, but recreating yourselves. And that is what I wish, as long as I'm here, and even when I'm not here, to help older persons to recreate themselves, to be re-empowered. And those are words I want older persons to understand. Yes, I understand illness. I had cancer. I still have a bad hip. I had all those things. I had a lot of illnesses. But those things will not keep me from living an independent life. And what we want are older persons to live an independent life, with or without their children. But we want the whole society to know that it's their responsibility to help the government develop an age-friendly society.
With that in mind, though, Mr. Claude, when we look at this idea that our statistics will bear it out, we have aging population, not just globally, but here specifically. We would like for the society to be age-friendly, accessible. We pass laws to make accommodations, but maybe some of us, out of being ill-informed, somewhat sadly, just disrespectful, inconsiderate in other ways. But I think of, say, Loma Linda, for instance, in California, where they say, it's this population. Then I look at the Cayman and I think of a vision where elderly not only have parks, but have opportunity. They don't have business and entrepreneurial endeavors because they never have time, but they also have the financial resources. But they can move about our communities because their roads are paved properly, and streets are accessible. There is this ethos almost within our society that you just naturally accommodate and respectful to all, but in particular the young and the elderly. But I wonder how much of that is evident in our society and how much of it is that we're working towards it, but really the reality is that there's only a handful of us and we're losing that.
I think ageism is a problem in Cayman. When I travel to just Miami, just over the water there, I see a lot of elderly people in the stores. They're not doing major tasks, but they're doing something, and they probably get a little stipend for it. For example, I'll just give you an example. When you go to a shoe store in Miami and you try on your shoes, there's an older person there picking back up all the box of shoes and putting them back in the boxes and putting them back on the shelf. Something as simple as that. And I'm sure if we were really that concerned and if we cared that much, we would try to create little industries for them as well, or things that they could do in the workplaces. You don't have to have a young face for every single thing, but there is an ageism problem in our country, and I think we have to acknowledge it.
So is it then from two perspectives that we don't recognize that for some, it's not just that they need the extra income to supplement their table and their budget, but for them they need a purpose. They need, whether it's a couple hours every day or it's only a few days every week, they need something that keeps them occupied, because for the last 40, 50 years, they were up every day from the crack of dawn working 15 hours a day, and all of a sudden now they get a certain age and oops, as Ms. Lucille shared, well, here's the door and a nice little paper-made pen for all your service.
True. Yes, but
is that
I feel we could do better.
Yes,
our workplaces, including the government too, could do better than we're doing. We see it when we go overseas. You go to the UK, you go to Europe, you see the elderly people traveling all over the place. It appears that they get in groups and they travel and they have a good time and they go back home and people look out for them.
Yeah.
They would have group leaders and so forth. I don't know. I know we have a council for the elderly now, but I think the council will probably have to trickle down a little further and set up organizations attached to the council to carry out those kinds of duties. So if the law has regulations, they're going to need to look at the regulations carefully and use the regulations to branch off into creating other subgroups to carry out these kinds of activities. And I think the young elderly persons would be the best ones to carry those out, because most of them home doing nothing.
Yeah, it's something that I guide all of you in particular. I'll exclude Ms. Cassandra. It isn't it isn't meant to be. But when I looked at our Constitution and looked at all the commissions that we have, and we have the environment protected, and I would thought, if we could have a commission, for elderly people, so that it's enshrined, that we start to recognize that God's willing we'll all get to this particular age and stage in our lives, and yet if we don't have the provision, not just in our law, but in the highest law, now, Ms. Lucille, it shouldn't be legislation, but at least if it's there.
Well, for it to be effective, there must be legislation. The interesting part of it, like all our laws, is the enforcement. Let's take, for example, politics.
Yes, ma'am.
Which I'm familiar with.
A little bit, huh?
A little bit. The law here says that they should not be forbidden. There shouldn't be any anti that they can't run.
Right.
Age should not be an issue at all. As a matter of fact, I am now thinking that, when we look at all these boards that we create, it's always a certain age group. Even the civil service. I don't know if the civil service has a lot of gray hair people in it, but unless we use Carol or Clara. But even that, I think it's a consciousness, as Miss Lucloy said, that we have to be, but we have to be aware of, and we have to constantly bring it to fore. And you, sir, can play a very significant part as a journalist to ensure that even your radio shows, I notice you talk a lot about politics on the radio shows and anti-stuff, but good things like how to let your older persons reignite and recreate themselves. I don't hear that too much on the radio. Those are things, and what you hear, you believe, and what you hear, you believe, and you act on. So this is where I believe that the radio stations and the TV can be very significant in making sure that we, as Mr. Cassandra said, we become an age-friendly society.
Sterling, sorry, if I could just add to that. Every older person's month, every October, we always acknowledge what we call Older Persons Month ambassadors. And these are persons that we put forward to the community, persons who are aging in a positive way and are still out there giving back to the community. So, they've retired, but they've taken on these secondary volunteer positions, whether it's working with an organization or doing something that they've created on their own. And we had our 4 ambassadors for the month. They were on your show last week, Monday. And so they had an extensive conversation about the work that they're doing in the community. So we put these persons forward to show the community as well that, persons can be active and contribute to society long after they retire. One particular person that I'd like to mention is our older person from Cayman Brat, Miss Maureen Idley Scott. And Miss Maureen, what she has said is she's personally taken on helping other older persons who are ill, where she goes, does simple things, but things that really matter to the older person, picking up medication, doing errands for them. She even mentions that sometimes if they're not feeling well, she stays over at their house to be able just to make sure to monitor and supervise them. And those are things that she's done because she just feels that it's also helping her to help others. So again, putting forward positive examples of older persons being active in the community, I think is something that we can show our society that, once older persons retire, we don't just write them off, but they can also fulfill a need that perhaps some of the family members can't.
Indeed. Well, with that, let's pause quickly and take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. Please stay tuned.
Can you imagine where Cayman runs off renewable energy? We can. Learn how you can join government and be an energy advocate.
Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure's Facebook page to learn more.
As a Caymanian, it's very important to me that projects like this are thought of thoroughly before continuing.
My question is, do we need it? And I've not yet been fully convinced that we need it, nor have I been fully convinced that we don't need it. So
what guarantee do we have that these ships are going to continue to come?
Please make the right decision.
Please don't let the catchy songs overturn you. Please support the referendum. Please ensure that you are supporting sustainable tourism, not just money-making tourism.
If the project plans have changed, even though it might be insignificant on paper, it's going to be significant for the environment.
They need to release official information, official facts.
That's where I am right now. I want to know, I want more information on do we need it.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
Vehicle owners are reminded that the Department of Vehicle and Driver's Licensing amnesty will expire on November 1st. The amnesty provides a waiver of back fees for unlicensed vehicles. If you plan to keep your vehicle on the road, keep your plates and visit the DVDL. If you are discarding your vehicle, dispose of it at the landfill and drop your plates off at the DVDL. For more information, contact 945-8344 or visit www.dvdl.gov.ky.
Saturday Night Live in Georgetown is back. October 26, 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. Join in on the downtown waterfront celebration with live music, art, and great Caymanian food against the beautiful sunset of Hogstye Bay. Check out the Georgetown Revitalization Facebook page for more details. Saturday Night Live, October 26th from 5 p.m.
Ambitious, determined, beautiful, and unapologetically uncompromising. You have set the bar high. Now let High Fashion and Design Studio take you to the next level. Full service hair and nail salon carrying the top designer brands. Calvin Klein, 9 West. Shoes, clothing, accessories, quality dressmaking, tailoring, and custom design. High Fashion and Design Studio, located in Cayman Trade Center, 199 Eastern Avenue, across from Bananas Restaurant. Call 945-4415 to book your high fashion and design experience today. Be bold, be true, be you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us. And it really is an honor to be able to partner with the Department of Children and Family Services and to have a discussion in our society, not just in October, but as Ms. Lucille, reminds us that it should be ongoing. So, as the chair of the Older Persons Council, Ms. Lucille Seymour, together with Ms. Deanna Lukloy and Ms. Daphne Hart. Now, Ms. Lucille, when I think of the Cayman context in particular, and I look at many of our, Ms. Cassandra referenced, their ambassadors, but she also referenced they engage in opportunities of many of our elderly people, whether it's in politics, as candidates or even elected, whether it's in advising those that are elected, whether it's sitting on the boards. Sometimes there's a business that is ongoing and you have an elderly person who helps with consulting, development, and otherwise. There's a great wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise that is there. But for some reason, when we're looking at consultants, if I can use that word, we may look, elsewhere, as opposed to that wealth of knowledge that is, just off the beaten path and up a driveway and on a back porch somewhere.
Well, I think that both everybody who spoke alluded to it. We do need a paradigm shift in how we look at older persons, and I just said that some of us just look at the ailing aspect of older persons, but there are people who were born in the 60s. I mean, I'm going to just give you that age group, who were born in the 70s, that are older persons who have gone to universities, and they are now retired, and they are home. And I don't think we're utilizing them the way we should, government nor private sector. And I'm not here to take either side, but I see a lot of things happening in our government where I know that they could go outside to even get a kitchen cabinet of older persons to even advise them. We can be in sports, education, finance, all those things. There's a plethora of people in my country that is younger than me, and they're between the age of 60 and 70 something, and they're smart, they're intelligent, they're ready to jump in. And so what happens on a radio station, they don't even get a chance to even say something, because it is crowded with other things that they're not getting to put their worth in. And you've asked me the question, and I know it's a very political question.
Well, was it meant to be?
I'll think. No, not from you. But politics is everywhere, and I appreciate you saying that.
Yes, well.
It is time that we utilize the persons. That's what I was talking about. They're recreating themselves.
Yeah. If I could then ask you, with that respect, because I noticed that we're a polite people, publicly. Once we can get people to a place where they feel that they can share, not just in confidence, but the knowledge that you listen to what they're saying and not take them out of context and beat them for it. We get people speaking more candidly. In our society, is it that we're at risk of not just alienating, but denying the society of the wealth of knowledge and experience that you referenced from an elderly, because if they speak publicly about something, it does not be politics, they could just be speaking about something socially, economically, environmental, whatever that thing is, that one, they may have a fear that they may lose some sort of status or standing or financial gifting otherwise, or two, some of us, including sadly some of us younger ones, will say, oh, that person, and we'll ascribe the most derogatory terms of senile or something else. When in fact, this elderly person, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old, has said, you know what, I've lived, I've seen, I've experienced, and therefore, I have this freedom, I should at least, to say this thing. You're not doing this right, here's a better way to do it, or however they term it, and we're not mindful to take on board what they're saying. We're too eager to castigate them, and then that coupled with their perhaps imposed sense of, well, if I say this, this may be how it will be perceived, and this may be the consequence. Is that where we are in our society? No, that's not a loaded question, but
I would not want to harass the conversation. I would want Miss Suki and Miss Lucloy, because I'm sure they've experienced that, to elucidate on those on what you have just asked me.
Ladies?
I think I was fortunate to have lived elsewhere, and I actually worked in a private Anglican school in Trinidad. I was the youngest person on staff at the time. Most of them were in their 60s and 70s. Some real old ladies, some were probably in their 80s. And they were such excellent teachers. And every time I read the reports that come out on the schools, I say to myself, why is it that they don't use some of the retired teachers at least to go to the schools and listen to the children read, help them to learn to read and to further themselves a bit? Because you have limited time when you're a classroom teacher. You have a few periods of the week to teach. But you have these older teachers home sitting down doing nothing really, who could very well help in the school system. I remember when my daughters were young at the Catholic school, there were a lot of old women there. They were from the UK, most of them, retired women here. But they used to go there to listen to the girls read and to help the teachers, like teaching assistants. And I believe we need to go back to some of that, because remember now we're retiring in our 60s, and you still have a lot of energy and life left, and we're not senile yet. You may forget a few little things here and there, but we really aren't gone yet. So it would be good if they could carve out some things for us to do, even as simple as I said, as to go and listen to the children read and correct them and help them with some of the things that the teachers don't have enough time for. But we have a wealth of educated persons sitting at home in Cayman that could do a lot more, for the country, and could help the country a lot more. So, and we'd get better results. I'm tired of seeing those results where this school is failing and that one is failing and that one failing and this. We can help make it better. We can.
Is it then that they're not, the elderly are not helping because, one, we're not asking them? We're not giving them the opportunity?
That's right. 2 weeks ago, I was asked to speak at a class, SciFec, and it was a privilege, really, to be in that classroom. And I think you could hear a pin drop. They were so attentive, and it was like they were drinking it like water in a sponge. I counted it a privilege, and they were extremely pleased. And I would love, and in fact, I've already had an invitation to return to the classroom. The thing about it is, someone retires today. It doesn't mean that tomorrow they're useless. We need to find even with the month of October being designated as Older Persons Month, I believe, and I've heard this expressed by a number of people during the activities that we've already been involved in for this month. And they're saying, if we could only even have something once a month for the older persons. Whether that's possible from DCFS or otherwise, I don't know. But I agree that there are areas in which we can help. I'm thinking very strongly now, since, I have such a passion, and I've, a lot of my efforts while serving as a member of the Legislative Assembly was geared and focused on the eradication of spousal and child abuse. So working in that area is something which I think I want to put more attention, put more time into that in that particular area. But speaking today of the elderly, not only is it important for us to be doing something, but it is important for the younger generation to be gleaning that knowledge from us, because otherwise a lot of what we know is not going to be passed on. It's not written down. It isn't in book form. But we can pass on so many important things to them. So what I'd like to see happen is that, as Mrs. Lockloy just said, within the school, within the church, in many other areas, let's see what we can do to get the younger generation to partner with the older ones and interact and engage and learn.
Indeed. But with that, let's take our headline news at 1, and when we come back, more talk today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio K-Man.
It's only 2 species that we have here on Iowa.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news. Access to information.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
There will be no YCLA this year. Through careful evaluation, the Young Caymanian Leadership Awards Board made a conscious decision to take the best attributes over the last 20 years and refocus the efforts on a rebirth that will serve the younger generation's needs, further providing a sustainable future for leadership development and recognition in the Cayman Islands. The YCLA Awards Gala is postponed to 2020. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, the Commons Speaker has refused a government request to hold a yes or no vote on its Brexit deal. John Burkhouse said a motion on the deal had been brought before MPs on Saturday, and it would be repetitive and disorderly to debate it again. Saturday's sitting saw MPs vote to withhold approval of Boris Johnson's deal until it has been passed into law. The government said it was disappointed, but would go ahead with introducing the necessary legislation. And the Duke of Cambridge is worried about his brother after he talked about his mental health in a TV documentary, a Kensington Palace source has told the BBC. Prince William is said to be hoping the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are all right after they told an ITV documentary they were struggling with the intense scrutiny from elements of the British tabloid press. The Palace source said there was a view the couple were in a fragile place. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
The government cleaning facility won't cost us a penny. It will be paid for by the cruise passenger who use it, not by our people or our government.
The fact is, you will be paying.
Because government is going to give the consortium development team, led by Royal Caribbean and Carnival, a portion of the cruise revenue that is currently being banked by government.
What's more, we will be repaying them
$450 million.
$250 million more
than what the facility even costs.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
Think about something that makes you happy. Did it make you smile? We know it did, because that's what we do at Sagicor. Put smiles on our clients' faces every day. With a large range of products to cover your family, it's no wonder most locals choose Sagicor for their life insurance needs. Serving the community for over 25 years. Let us put a smile on your face. Call your Sagicor advisor today.
The
2019 Fall Labor Force Survey and Pilot Census are currently being conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office. The Labor Force Survey collects data on the employed and unemployed persons, while the Pilot for Census 2020 will test the questionnaire prior to its finalization. Trained interviewers with ESO ID cards will visit randomly selected households in all districts. The interviews are confidential in accordance with the statistics law. No individual data will be published or disclosed. Survey data are exempt from Freedom of Information. For more details, please call the ESO on 516-3329.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Okay, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us. And again, thanks to Miss Lucille Seymour, Miss Daphne Hart, and Miss Deanna Lecloy, together with Cassandra Ferron, as we have the discussion on the Older Persons Council. Now, I say this several times, and especially when we have people like you on, that if not reminded, I would not immediately conclude that you would be considered elderly. The active, the energetic, but also the youthfulness. Now, I think if I may ask Ms. Cassandra, if it's not too much imposition, we talk about, because Ms. Lucy alluded to it earlier, there's the young elder, and there's a term, there's like 4 categories of the elderly, so that we start to appreciate it. I think Susan is in the first category. Just kidding. Oh, she's like, But the category.
Or Cassandra.
Well, this is one of the things that, we try to educate the community on as well, is that there are 3 different categories of older persons. The young old, which are 65 to 74. And these are the persons that we see probably are most active. They're perhaps just retiring, still taking care of grandchildren, still very active in the community. And then we have the middle old, which are 75 to 84. And then what we call the oldest old, which are 85 years and up. And this is the category that we see as the fastest growing. The persons are living a lot longer. But we also see in this category more persons than perhaps with the chronic illnesses and perhaps people that we might term more frail in the community. So there has to be greater services put forward in the country to be able to serve these persons, because they're obviously a little bit more reliant on services in the community, but also on family members or caregivers. But going back to talking about the younger of the older persons then, and we were talking before the break about participation in the community. There are several organizations that cater to literacy in the community, as Ms. Lecloy talked about, that we can have older persons volunteering themselves to. I see as well a lot of charitable organizations, that older persons could be coming from retirement and going straight into these organizations where they can channel their skills and be able to educate and help the community in regards to the community needs. Perhaps, organizations like, maybe Rotary and Lions, a lot of them are about, business networking and such. But there are a lot of opportunities there. And from the Cayman Islands Older Persons Policy, one of the action plans was to put forward a website where there are opportunities listed for older persons, but also the activities for older persons, where there's one location where persons can go to get the information that's available, that activities are available to them, but also opportunities are available to them. It hasn't been properly set up as yet, but I think that's something that perhaps needs to be organized a little bit quicker rather than later, to be able to have a area where we can coordinate the opportunities that are available for older persons, because there might be organizations that want to utilize the services of older persons, but they just don't know how to find them. And then there are also a varying list of activities that are put on, not only by the government, by our department, but by other community organizations, churches, some community groups, that I think we need to be able to publicize those better to older persons, so that there's not just, older persons month where we're seeing all of these activities, but people know that there are activities as well throughout the year. And then, as we talked about as well before the break, where we talked that there should be, recognizing the value of older persons more, and that we need to have the younger generation see this. One of the things that we're doing in Older Persons Month, and it's not on our activity calendar, but we've started going into the schools to do a presentation on appreciating the older persons in my family. And this also is something that came out of the Cayman Islands Older Persons Policy. And just the other day, we had a panel discussion of older persons. And this was something that came from almost all of our panelists, that they wanted to see the children be able to respect older persons more, or see the value of older persons more. To talk more about teaching those traditional values of parents, teaching traditional values of family. And so this is something that we started taking out then to the primary schools. We're taking it to the younger children, so that we can show them, that how the older persons in their particular families matter. And it's something that we want to continue to do, not just in Older Persons Month, but we'll continue to have it as part of our public education throughout the year as well, showing respect and value for older persons.
If I could just add that that is one of the reasons that we're working so hard to get Miss Arlett's house that she bequeathed to the people of the Cayman Islands, because I don't want people to think that the older persons law is a panacea for it, because first of all, the older persons board is made up of half civil servants and some private people, and it doesn't have any administration work, secretariat at all. It has one executive person, so whatever they are intending to do is going to be slow. All the things that we have mentioned here for the older persons, the public has been written to ask to assist, because we don't want it to say that we are the actioneers of it. We want to bring the awareness. I think what we need first in Cayman is the awareness, and once we get the awareness, we get people to work it out. But if the older persons can have a center for themselves, I believe we will have started the first thing, that they know that's where, because when we talk about electronic things and technological things, 90% of them will not be able to reach the website, reach whatever. So let's start now face-to-face. So if we start face-to-face, then we branch them out to those who can get the website and those who can get all those other things, then we work with them. But if we can have centers, and starting with the Arlette, the older person center in Georgetown for the Arlette Diocese House, then that'll be a start. Then we'll go to different districts and make sure that there is a center for the older persons, because optics is very important. It's okay for us to be talking over the radio about older persons, but if they don't see, if you drive every morning, I drive every morning, and I see this is the use of the whatever it is on those placards. It would be nice sometime for us to show somebody looking like me or you, or even the grayness of us is not in Cayman at all. And I don't want to beat up my own country, but I know its weaknesses.
You see, sometimes when they're advertising for insurance companies and other.
But that's overseas. That's from overseas.
No, I'm talking about local.
No, but it's always an overseas ad. You think about it. Bermuda, British Caymanian, they're not local ads.
Okay, but anyway, those are older persons. But I think in speaking of a person's it isn't just longevity. It isn't always the length of life, but it's the quality of life.
So late to years, but years to life.
Yeah. So you will often hear, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. I think one of the things that I'd like to get across in these few minutes that we have is that if you're living in the vicinity of or know of an individual that you believe needs additional help, I've working with a ministry from the Wesleyan Church. It's called Soup Kitchen Ministry, and so different groups go out on Saturday to assist and take food out to individuals. And I know that there are a few places that I visited where I was taken aback. I knew that a helper was there. But the situation around the home, the situation when you got inside of the home, and I compared it with other places that I had visited where you walk in and there's a pleasant aroma. The yard is cleaned and free from dirt, all the trash and everything that's around it. And I think we as citizens, even private citizens, if we don't want to get involved directly with them, I think it should be brought to the attention of the DCFS so that they can go in there and intervene just to make sure that the individuals are well looked after, because not every time that a helper is being paid to take care of an older person is that individual being looked after the way that they should. The thing is, we have to give them the best. You should not walk into a house and, I just want to express this. This is sort of plain language, but you do not want to walk into a house and the first thing that hits you when you enter the room is the stench, the aroma of, the pens that have been used over and over again. You look and you go down and you want to put your arm around or get near to that person, and you can tell that the hair is not smelling good. These are things that need to be monitored because everyone is deserving of the quality of life. So sometimes there's such an emphasis on, she's reached 90, what is the quality of life? What can we do? What can the community do? What can the churches do with the various groups that they have for ministry?
So with that then, if I may ask then, the churches, the service does, but the churches in particular, and we look at the ministries, we look at the services, we look at even the congregation. But then we look at the challenges sometimes, Mr. Claude, where just transportation, maybe the church hall would be available, but nobody to facilitate it. And if it is, how do we get people there? So what more can we do instead of saying, well, someone else should or government must? How do we get us to do this, the families or communities?
That is difficult to answer. Traditionally, the government has taken responsibility for these services. And these services cost. And I can tell you from experience at DCFS, they're very expensive. Services for the elderly and running the homes and so forth. So, but I still believe that there could be more partnership, maybe with the churches and government, to ease the burden on the government and to have, through the churches, the general public contributing, because we must see it also as our responsibility to take care of our elderly. I know a lot of people, every now and then you hear, they really laid the foundation for us. Of course they did. I can remember when there was not that much in Cayman, but I can remember the names of people who were proactive and who did things coming from across all the districts. The names still stick in my head. They're still stuck in my head. You can remember the prominent people, the people who would enter the politics, and just concerned citizens too who were proactive in their communities. Now I think people have just kind of sit back and don't really get themselves that involved. But maybe we need some form of a catalyst. And perhaps the catalyst may have to come from DCFS to try to ignite people to do more work in their communities.
So, as I was saying earlier, is that I really feel that there is great business opportunity for businesses to add additional services to cater for the aging population. We are in a state now where we really don't have the level of residential care that is necessary to be able to provide to this population. I know it's traditional where Caymanians love to age at home, but there are certain situations where residential care is necessary, where some people don't have family, where they don't have housing, or where perhaps there is some illness that the family cannot care for the older person at home, and they need to have residential care, as well as for persons that don't have housing. There is a need for special needs or disability type housing that the government can rent. I know that landlords do not like to rent to the government, but there is a need for specialized housing for older persons where we then can work with the family to have care put into the home so that older person can age at home. So persons, individuals, businesses that want to develop these type of special needs housings or residential care, I think there is opportunity there, as well as there is need for daycare services. Though presently, the only daycare services that are being offered are through the Pines Residential Home. And so there's a greater need for daycare where, families who can have their older persons attend during the day and they can go home in the evening when their children perhaps are there with them. Legal services, there's need for either donated legal services, not just what we have with the Legal Befrienders, and I know we're very thankful for that organization, but we have older persons who need help to, their families to put together power of attorneys or legal guardianship, or there are many different situations that they might need assistance with, and if they can't afford it, how then do we be able to access those services for them? Ms. Daphne spoke about older persons living in certain conditions. So again, we try to partner with varying organizations to help out in those particular cases, but we also welcome other organizations if they so would like to form a group where we can call on, if they want to go in to help clean up older persons' homes, donate their time, just from time to time, please do contact us at Department of Children and Family Services. We're happy to work with you all. And again, I just want to touch as well on donated services to older persons, whether it's just coming in volunteering at the residential homes to do activities with our older persons there. So, you can still have that continued connection to the community. We welcome those as well.
And I would like to just add that we have to ensure in this 21st century that the care and age-friendliness of older persons is not just directed to the government. And I think this is what we have done. With Children and Family Services, the only law that they have which protects the older persons is the poor persons law. And I believe that a lot of our indigent fall under that. Now, I said earlier that older persons make up a whole plethora of age groups and wealth and etc. And what we need is to draw the attention to everybody. We have in this country now called a non-profit law, and a lot of non-profits have evolved just recently and evolved and shot up. I have written to we are now in engagement to find out how many of those nonprofits are actually have part of their remit or terms of reference to help older persons, because that would alleviate a lot from the Children and Family Services. Because remember, the nomenclature is Children and Family Service. Implicit in that is older persons. So how they share that up, and they have just a little bit of money. Now, I mean, they have a lot, but they have to share it up a lot.
A lot of demands on them.
And so therefore, if our aging population is getting more and more and more and more, we have to partner, as Mrs. Lokloy said. We have to partner with the community to ensure that our older persons are advancing how we want them to advance. Yes, Children and Family Services can do something, but let us look at what the law says and what remit it gives the law to advocate, to promote, to push, and the government is no exception on that. Right. But it is a board which has to have more strength, more finances, more people, more everything in order to do its job properly. At the moment, it is 90% half civil service and half private people, and we need to be a little more action-oriented with Children and Family Services.
One of the things that I have been thinking of a whole lot is that you will notice that in many of our walk-run events, so much of it is geared toward cancer research or cancer or something else. And of course, that's necessary. But when it comes to the looking after the elderly, those are needs that are very much as important, I think, as even cancer research. These people are alive. These people are needing something, and their quality of life is important. What can we do as a society? How much can we put, all of these efforts that are being made, how much of it can be geared toward seeing that the elderly are well cared for, well looked after? Because right now it seems that the most of everything that's expected to be done and is being done for the elderly, it is falling right in the hands of government itself. Whereas, as we have just mentioned, there are all these other groups that are raising money for one thing or another. I believe that this is important, that I can think of the Pink Ladies and what they do at the Pines and all the all the effort that they do in that area. Well, we have to give them kudos for how much. I mean, they put on a tea party and they work throughout the year to raise funds to do things that will help certainly in many different areas, I guess. But that's not a huge organization. And I believe that more effort should be made to seek funds to assist the government, because government can't do everything.
Well, perhaps we've had only 3 discussions this month just with the Older Persons Council, but as Ms. Lucille has reminded us, as we try, maybe we can have more and more. But I keep asking myself this question: is it that we, collective as a society, but we, the younger ones, whether we 50, 60 or 40 or 30, that we don't have the sufficient patience and deference for elder to engage and to accommodate and to take the time, or that somehow during this whole process, irrespective of the legislation or the lack of enforcement, the notion that the cultural ethos in our society is one to not only engage our elderly for their experience and their expertise, but more importantly, to ensure that they understand that it isn't only their right, but it's incumbent on them, and we're going to heed, listen, and want to know what is it that they're thinking on whatever issue. And maybe that's part of the reason why, Miss Lucy, it's easier to get them to share with you privately but to invite them to be a part of a panel discussion, to call in, other than the access to technology and the challenges of getting to the studio and what have you. But they say, you know what, they're not going to listen to me anyway, so why bother? And that's part of, I'm wondering if that's part of the challenge.
I think one of the areas as well that I've heard individual mention to me, something as simple as having a bus service where, the bus is going to take us to the supermarket on a Tuesday morning or whatever. We know that there's a bus available that's going to come right to your house, not on just, you might be off the beaten path, but that bus is, if you need to get to the clinic or get to the hospital for a doctor's appointment, you know that bus is going to be available to take you there. And appointments with the doctor aren't necessarily Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. They can be any day. But I think something as simple as a designated service to take care of the elderly, to go for those appointments or go to the supermarket, but they get out, they're involved, they do things, and ensuring, of course, not just getting them there, getting them back home as well. And I think that is something that could be, sometimes even a bus company might be able to say, I will donate the services of a bus on a Tuesday morning between 8 and 12.
Yeah. Well, I think,
or Thursday or whenever.
Yeah, we sparked an interest, and Ms. Lucille, going forward, now that you have directed me, I'm going to come straight to you and not follow what I thought was the protocol. So forgive me for that. But I want to start this discussion because many of us have not only the respect for our elderly, but God's willing, we'll get to live to that age where we're considered to be, hopefully we're not just the young old, but as we're the oldest of the old, that we're still mentally and physically and spiritually grounded, that we can contribute. And other than, not being able to run as fast as Carl Lewis, perhaps we can still walk as quickly as, Miss Susan. We'll see where it goes. Closing thoughts, Miss Lucille.
Well, you have to get the consciousness into those older persons that are agile, reignited, like Mrs. Lucloy and Miss Ansuki and myself, and those who can walk on 2 feet and think with to be the advocates. This is what you need. You need older persons that have voice, and a voice that people can hear. And they mean what they say. And when they see issues, they take it up, just like how they take up the birthing. They take up those issues and help their fellow older persons, the ones in the wheelchairs. So it's like the blind holding somebody's hand. Well, the one who can see hold someone's hand, and that's how the older persons, they have to be advocates. Just like the young people are advocates now for this and what they want, the old people want to be re-empowered, to recreate themselves. And there's one thing I'm going to leave here, and what I see. They have to be able to be entrepreneurial, because it's a fallacy for us to think that people are retiring rich in my country. Old folks, they're not. They are retiring poor. And that is going to be a double burden for the government. This is not an askance on the government. This is how we as a country, as Miss Cassandra has said, how we can be age-friendly to help our age group do something. As Miss Lucloy said, they can do something. And not everything they should volunteer for. You're bringing people to replace them and paying them. So why can't you pay them? When they have to be recreated. Absolutely. I'm sorry, this is the way I think. And this is where I'm going to go, to ensure to ask questions all the time. You retired someone and you brought in somebody that is younger than that somebody, how will that person, their pension last? And I'm sorry we don't have enough time to talk about those things. How long is their pension going to last? Right. So I'll just, that's how I'll close. Right. And I know Mrs. Lucloy is anxious to say something.
Well, I am hoping that in Georgetown, at least, now that we've gotten the home Miss Arlette Diaz graciously left for us, we can do something with it for the senior citizens in Georgetown. I feel The same way Miss Lucille feels. If they want to grow some plants, they can come there and sell them. And I think we will have to create an NPO, don't we?
Yes, definitely.
We'll have to create an NPO to do anything there. But it's a good center, a nice, attractive place right in the heart of town. I'm sure the tourists coming off the ship, they're always looking for a bathroom to use. Well, when we go overseas, we have to pay to use the bathroom. We have to pay to use it. Even $1. Anywhere you go in Europe, you have to pay to use the bathroom. So we have to think of little things like that to help support those elderly persons. They bring in their plants, they bring in a few sandwiches, serve some tea. That right there is right smack in the heart of Georgetown where all the cruise ship tourists pass. So we're hoping that centers like that in all the towns, not just Georgetown, could open up and the elderly people could do little things for themselves. We can't expect them to go do manual work now, they're past that. But they will have little things that they can do to help them earn a living.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Cassandra, thank you for wrapping up for us, ma'am.
Thank you, Sterling. Thank you for having us here today. As I close, I just want to, thank everybody who has contributed so far to Older Persons Month, but also to remind older persons that we have an event tomorrow at the Nurse Joseph Senior Center starting at 10 o'clock. So that is at the Nurse Joseph Senior Center in Bodentown, and we do have bus transport for persons to attend as well. And then on Friday we have 2 events. We partnered with 2 gyms, Bliss Yoga starting at 1:15 and Kingsport Center at 11 o'clock that persons can come out and attend to. And finally, I just want to say that I hope we have sparked some discussion here today that, community can take part in helping to provide age-friendly communities, and that there's lots of opportunity for them to do so. And also, I'd like to encourage, if anybody wants a copy of the Cayman Islands Older Persons Policy, which provides more information on the needs of older persons, they can do so, and you can get it on the government website.
Okay. Thank you all very, very much. And I invite you to have a blessed and safe afternoon.
Thank you very much as well. And one of the things in my closing that I'd like to say is that, we keep emphasizing Cayman Kind. There needs to be an opportunity for older persons to be able to participate in that Cayman Kind effort. And I would hope that as we see numbers increasing in our tourism product, that there might be an effort. I think the ladies from Georgetown said that they're hoping to have a home where these individuals can come. But I would hope that in these bus tours that go through our district, they'd be able to stop at certain homes and just have visitors interact with our older persons, ask questions, and get a real feel of what Cayman is all about. Thank you very much for having us. I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you all for making time with us. With that, let's pause and take a break. When we come back, I want to invite you to be part of our next panel discussion as we look at rehabilitation in our prison population. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Ambitious, determined, beautiful, and unapologetically uncompromising. You have set the bar high. Now let High Fashion and Design Studio take you to the next level. Full service hair and nail salon carrying the top designer brands: Calvin Klein, 9 West, shoes, clothing, accessories, quality dressmaking, tailoring, and custom design. High Fashion and Design Studio, located in Cayman Trade Center, 199 Eastern Avenue, across from Banana's Restaurant. Call 945-4415 to book your high fashion and design experience today. Be bold, be true, be you.
As a Caymanian, it's very important to me that projects like this are thought of thoroughly before continuing.
My question is, do we need it? And I've not yet been fully convinced that we need it, nor have I been fully convinced that we don't need it. So
what guarantee do we have that these ships are going to continue to come?
Please make the right decision.
Please don't let the catchy songs overturn you. Please support the referendum. Please ensure that you are supporting sustainable tourism, not just money-making tourism.
If the project plans have changed, even though it might be insignificant on paper, it's going to be significant for the environment.
They need to release official information, official facts.
That's where I am right now. I want to know, I want more information on do we need it.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
Congratulations, I hear the family is expanding.
Yes, our family is growing bigger, but I don't know how we're going to get around. Our old car just doesn't have enough room.
You should head over to Vamp Motors and ask about the Toyota Rush. It's a 7-seater SUV with lots of room and safety features, and it's on sale for just $21,900.
Rush in to Vamp Motors for the best deal of the year on the Toyota Rush SUV. Save up to $2,600 with Vamp cashback and the Toyota factory rebate going on right now. Fuel efficient, stylish, roomy, and loaded with safety features. The Rush is the perfect SUV for you and your family, starting from just $21,900. Visit Vamp Motors and drive your deal home today while stock lasts. I'm starting my shopping early this year. What do you want for Christmas?
All I really want for Christmas is for my packages to arrive on time.
Plan ahead to get your shipments into Seaboard Marine on time and avoid the holiday rush. Check out their great less-than-container shipment rates. Seaboard saves you time, money, and convenience with consolidation and repacking options available. Take a load off Santa this holiday season. Shop, ship, and save on your small packages with Seaboard Marine. Give us a call at 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com/grand-cayman for quotes or additional details.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Hi, it's me, your teenager. So I did an anonymous drug survey at school in 2018. The results revealed that a 13-year-old is likely to try vaping for the first time. And it showed that 3 in every 10 teens have already tried vaping at least once in their lifetime. Over the 3,000 teens that took the survey, 76.3% said that their parents have had the conversation with them about drugs and alcohol. Anyways, I was watching a commercial and this really cute guy said that vaping is much safer than smoking. And he used a vape that looks like a USB and has no smoke. It was so cool.
Contact the National Drug Council and learn about the Parents as Preventers training. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM.
Few people speak up when they witness cyberbullying. Logic is proud to present The Change Project, a 15-minute documentary that captures the reality of cyberbullying and the mental health impact on teens, parents, teachers, and families. It's part of a campaign that strives to make a difference in the community by promoting responsible internet and social media use in the Cayman Islands. Screening is at the Camana Bay Cinema on Friday, October 25th at 7 p.m. Afterwards, please join Logic for a family-friendly gathering at Abacus. RSVP to eventpro.ky.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you for joining us. And it is a truly distinct pleasure to be able to ensure that we have our monthly mental health matters, and so grateful that our guests, in particular, for this discussion. As we get started, as we look at the mental health needs within those who are incarcerated, Dr. Alexandra Brown, you again do an amazing job of assembling a fine panel, but for asking the public to look at discussions that are not often enough in the public domain. So this discussion is hopefully one that will get us thinking more about it. So good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for having us on.
And I look around the table and I see, you couldn't just, be any better with the compliment of these fine gentlemen here. I think Mr. Hydes and Ms. Hilton. Why, as I look to each of your sides, I'm thinking, well-grounded indeed. Now, Dr. Borden, would you want to make the formal introductions, or want me to go around and ask Mr. Hydes to do a quick intro as the manager of Hope, and then Dr. Colleen equally? All right. So just a brief intro for our listeners, and make it easier for me.
Well, it's always a great pleasure to be sitting across from you, Sterling Dwayne, and to be on Radio Cayman to talk about the benefits of recovery and mental health and all these so fragile subjects that so people are so afraid sometimes to take on. I big up Dr. Alexander Borden and her efforts and all the panel that are here. It is such a delicate topic that a lot of people run away from it. Many times they seem to either do something or do nothing at all. And welcome you guys.
Well, thank you very much. And equally, as a clinical psychologist, Dr. Colleen, perhaps a brief intro just for...
Sure.
All right.
I'm Dr. Colleen Brown. I work with Dr. Bodden at Encores Cayman. I see children, adolescents, and adults. And I think this topic is extremely important in the States. I did work in a juvenile facility in which a lot of my kids, we were trying to work with them on trauma-informed care, as well as trying to get them with step-down care for when they were outside of the facility. And I've also worked with kids in the court system in Philadelphia. So super happy that we're discussing this today.
Well, thank you very much. And I think when we think of the notion of having people within a society for, whatever reason, they find themselves before the courts and then a period of incarceration, we have our master's prison both for the male and our female. Within that, though, introduction.
Hi. Good afternoon. So my name's Dr. Larissa Johnson. I'm a forensic psychologist. I work with Her Majesty's Cayman Island Prison Service with Mr. Hilton Grace. So I lead the clinical team at the prison, across the prison service. I did most of my training, and then my qualified work was in the UK, across UK prisons, forensic mental health hospitals, and in the community.
And I thank you so much. When Dr. Borden, and if it's okay to share, I would like to say public thanks to you guys in particular for scheduling yourselves to be able to get away from the desk to come to the panel discussion here. I don't think we who are on the outside understand how significant it is, how impactful, but how important for us to be part of this process.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Hilton, maybe from your perspective, let's just bring you back in. Formal and proper introductions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hilton Grace, and as Dr. Johnson had just spoken, we both work in the prison services. I work as a correctional counselor.
And for those who don't know, now we know the correctional officers, we know, but correctional counselor, what would that entail?
Well, pretty much we take care of the clinical needs of all the clients at Northwood. So if someone is depressed, someone is just feeling out of it, we administer care.
Okay. Now, Dr. Johnson, I want to make sure, forensic psychologist as well as a forensic psychologist.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I don't know. Sometimes I think they find these topics challenging, so we make it as light as we can so people can at least pay attention. What does that entail?
So, forensic psychologist. Well, largely we do a lot of clinical work, so we will treat kind of severe and enduring mental illnesses depending on your background. Mm-hmm. But the focus of forensic psychology is on risk, so we specialize in risk assessments, management of risk, and so that's where the role comes into the prison. So I guess one example would be if I'm asked by the court or if I'm asked by the conditional release board to do a report on someone, and how can we help manage their risk in the community based on behaviors that we've seen before they come to prison and while they've been in prison. How can we prevent any negative behaviors and enhance any more kind of pro-social behaviors?
Right. Now, with that, Dr. Biles, we were looking at a discussion, the role of mental health in our justice system. We see it on the outside and accessing it, but sometimes we don't appreciate what maybe some of the difficulties that are peculiar to those who are before the courts, who are then incarcerated and then being asked to be released or have now served their time and they want to get on with their lives. From there, it has bounced between the three of you primarily. Where are we as a population in looking at this incidence within our prison populations or the mental health and access that they have?
Yeah. Well, I think it's an important topic and one that's often, and so we've tackled this from a slightly different angle, especially looking at youth. And I think that there's less forgiveness with the adults. And I think it's important to understand the role that mental health plays, not only with being predisposed to or being at risk for some like criminal activities, but also the experiences that they'll have in jail and then coming out as well. So estimates from the States are about 15% of men and 30% of women who go into prison will have some kind of mental illness. We have the Ford Prison Study, which documented not only not as much mental illness, but learning disabilities, as well as a history of trauma. And I think that's what's really important when looking at prisoners, because that's what they get labeled. They are now prisoners. And once they're out, they become ex-convicts. And they're still a person. And I think it's important to look at the whole person and the whole length of time of what's been going on, because a lot of times there is a history of trauma, which comes out differently depending on men versus women. And so it's important to provide the support that they need in prison, but coming out in particular, especially if people have gone into jail from young, which unfortunately many of our young men are at risk for that, especially related to drug use, which I know was another thing that was documented, is that there's many of the prisoners there are incarcerated for drug-related crimes. Or activities. And so with that coming out, it's a huge thing. So we see it a lot clinically with people coming back from facilities overseas, but locally, even just transitioning from an institution back into the community is hard, especially with the stigma that they face. So if you add on top of that anxiety, depression, or some kind of more severe persistent mental illness, like Dr. Johnson was saying, some kind of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder that requires care and maintenance. And so it's a huge stressor transitioning from a life where everything is regimented and everything is done, by the book, by someone else's orders, to being out with now a criminal record. It's hard to get a job. People don't trust you. And then you aren't able to make the money to live the good life and live like you're supposed to. So coming out is actually probably the hardest time for them. Yeah. They come out probably, hopefully, with high hopes of what they're going to be able to do, and they want to turn their life around. But if the community doesn't give them a chance and the opportunity to do that, then it's going to be really hard, and that's where we end up with recidivism, which is where a lot of studies focus. Well, they come out and then they commit crimes again. But why? Yeah.
If I made an ask, Dr. Johnson, specifically looking at, and some of us may have made light of the comments coming out of San Francisco, but not understanding the importance of words, and we thought it was just semantics. Over there, recent articles in the media talked about changing the terminology for people who are offenders, and we call them justice-involved individuals. And there's this notion, and like I said, some in the media have made light of it, but is it more than that, or is it that's a step in trying to help to dispel the stigma, to let things, as we've done with other groups of people, so that we label it differently?
It's one step. So when you think about kind of trauma-informed care, trauma-informed approaches, I think terms that we used are someone who is imprisoned instead of a prisoner, or a service user, because that's what we do. We offer a service within the prison system. The thing is with labels, you can always put a connotation to it over time. So it can be that over time, service users kind of takes on its own connotation. That is always the case. So it's not just relying on language alone, but that is a start. It gets people thinking about, well, why would they make all this effort to change the language? Because it does kind of make the stigma a lot stronger. When you say to someone, that this guy's an ex-offender or he's an ex-prisoner, ex-con, or what have you. There's always kind of, I think, a bit of a shock value assigned to that, so people kind of recoil a bit from that. So shifting the terminology, shifting the language can help, but it's one of kind of a whole system of things that needs to change.
So not unlike the scriptures, we talk about life and death is in the tongue. You're looking at labels and the connotations and the stigma. Now with that, the Ford study, I think we have, almost all of us referenced it at some point. Some with glowing recommendations, others with less than. Is it then, as we look at it, is it conclusive? Is it exhaustive? Just cursory.
Well,
I know Mr. Grace going to be diplomatic, but
that was 2006. The landscape has shifted.
Right.
And whereas it looked at Eagle House, which was in existence, that's no longer. I know it also looked at some diversion programs, and those have not come to fruition, really. But what we can say is that where, in terms of juveniles, in the justice system, they're still there. We see some of them later on as they hit into adulthood, but then there are certainly efforts to try and divert them. But I don't think the diversion programs have yet been full effect.
Dr. Colleen, if you want to jump in, if not, I'll just. All right. No, you see, because I did a thing that I know. Go ahead, Dr. Borden.
Well, I would say I think it's a good start. I agree. It's an old study. It may not be as relevant now, but it really ends. This is what happens in Cayman, right? Because we don't have a lot of consistent statistics. It's a way of acknowledging things to give us a start of where to continue to research, what to look into. And I do like that it does highlight that these are not just bad people. Bad things have happened to them, and it's the community's responsibility. So I do a lot of work with the Hope Foundation with Mr. Brunt, and I think he's really good at letting people know the importance of that in rehabilitating people. Prison's not the end of it. That really starts when they get out. And it's the community's responsibility to allow them to be able to participate and be involved community members. Looked like a question was coming.
No. It is, because this is where I like with Dr. Boyne, when we sit down in August, September, October the year before, looking at the program for the next year. And this is one of the topics that we're trying to. And the notion that we get to, maybe there are particular difficulties faced within the prison system for accessing mental health. But if I could, because I was going to jump from Dr. Colleen to Mr. Hydes.
Yes.
We've chatted about this. You've been very candid, as Dr. Borden has shared. I don't want to pick on West Bay, but because we live there, that's where we go. And with the greatest respect, increasingly, you see more of a family and their friends on a daily basis out in the community.
Yeah, so
and the numbers are increasing.
Let me jump in here for a second. The average age of a prisoner in Northwood is probably between the ages of 18 and probably about 60 years old, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of balanced.
Yes,
yeah. So we look at that, and we look at those people that are 60 years old. Let's say we look at them and we look at the way they grew up. And I'll talk about myself. My father used to be a seaman. He used to go to sea, and he was a really good man. He did the best he could. But when he came home, he liked to celebrate a little too hard. So with that celebration, what it brought was a lot of abuse because he got drunk. And the reason I talk about the 60-year-olds is because a lot of Caymanian men and women have experienced this. They were always told they weren't going to be no good, never grow up to be anything, that sort of stuff. With that, it led to them to probably self-medicate on drugs, alcohol, etc. What they were not told as a young kid, or they might have been told of the dangers of drugs and alcohol. But they did it anyway. My daddy did it. He enjoyed it. They saw the fun side of it. But what they were not told was the flip side of it. What can happen, what will happen if we continue to keep it up. So with that being said, with all the stuff in the words and all the stuff that happened in the household, it led to them actually self-medicating. And as they continued to self-medicate, then they fell into a life of crime and drugs, which eventually they landed up in Northwood. So unless these issues were actually properly addressed from the beginning, the problem and the cycle will continue. So the message I try to carry today is to encourage people to open up about their feelings, open up about what's going on in their life, because then and only then can the healing process actually begin. Because if we continue to bury all our deep, dark secrets, that we try to manage all these things on our own without sometimes professional help, the cycle is going to continue.
Yeah.
So we must reach out and we must be open. We must be honest. I know I was at a march the other day and I was quite surprised. I wasn't as shocked as all my life. I mean, I saw hundreds of women and just a handful of men.
Yeah.
And for me, that was surprising because it's kind of like I was talking about before. I know what happened to a lot of the 60 and the 70-year-old guys that are growing up in this country. I know. Their father done the same thing mine has done. They continue to do the best they could at that particular time, but there was other problems that he was dealing with, which usually ended up the mother, the sister, and the children was the one that was feeling it.
And cycle repeats. All right, let's pause and take our news break. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion. It is our monthly health, our monthly mental health matters.
Yes.
See that really fast.
Yes.
And we invite you to be a part of it. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Vehicle owners are reminded that the Department of Vehicle and Driver's Licensing amnesty will expire on November 1st. The amnesty provides a waiver of back fees for unlicensed vehicles. If you plan to keep your vehicle on the road, keep your plates and visit the DVDL. If you are discarding your vehicle, dispose of it at the landfill and drop your plates off at the DVDL. For more information, contact 945-8344 or visit www.dvdl.gov.ky.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news. Access. Information.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
A WhatsApp message warning persons about robberies committed using fraudulent ID is a hoax. A joint statement by the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Ministry of Finance and Economics notes local police have received no reports of such robberies and are asking the public to remain calm and refrain from further circulating the fraudulent warning. The statement goes on to say that a similar scam has been circulating internationally via mobile and social media for years, surfacing most recently in September of 2019. Members of the public are reminded that the RCIP will promptly notify the public whenever recent crimes create the potential for concern or impact. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, the number of people killed in violent protests against rising living costs in Chile has risen to 11. At least 5 of those killed died after looters torched a garment factory near the capital. The military and police used tear gas and water cannons against protesters, and a curfew was imposed in major cities. And U.S. Republican Senator Mitt Romney has revealed he uses a secret Twitter account under the name Pierre Delecto. In an interview with The Atlantic magazine on Sunday, the former presidential candidate admitted he had a lurker Twitter handle to follow the U.S. political conversation anonymously. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
The government claims the cruise berthing facility won't cost us a penny. It will be paid for by the cruise passenger who use it, not by our people or our government.
The fact is, you will be paying. Because government is going to give the consortium development team, led by Royal Caribbean and Carnival, a portion of the cruise revenue that is currently being banked by government.
What's more, we will be repaying them
$450 million.
$250 million more
than what the facility even costs.
It's your vote, your future.
So make a decision based on fact.
You deserve the whole truth.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. And thanks for joining us. And this is a very special edition of our monthly Mental Health Matters as we look at the mental health needs for our prisoners and sort of the role of mental health in our justice system. If she doesn't mind me saying publicly and often, Dr. Alexandra Button, for not just facilitating, I think we've gone beyond that, not just producing, but ensuring that we have this monthly production. It takes a lot, and to the wonderful panel that you always assemble. And this month, from the Hope for Today Foundation, Mr. Brent Heights, Dr. Bond's colleague over at Mixture on Course came on, Dr. Colleen Brown, and then from Her Majesty's Prison Service, the forensic psychologist. I want to say forensic pathologist. I keep wanting to say it.
I'm not that smart. Thank you.
But you look at Dr. Larissa Johnson and her colleague, one of the correctional counselors, Mr. Hilton Grace. I was just thinking, during the break, this idea that, sadly, and I say this carefully, but only understanding that those of us who've had the distinct privilege of being part of the panel of inspectors when they had it way back and we got invited into prison, is one of them that you see firsthand. Yeah. And then as you look around, hey, that's my cousin, that's my classmate. Well, I hadn't seen you for a while. And we only appreciate what it is. And because we know them, we grew up with them, you get a chance to, without saying much, hear a lot. And you recognize that there is this thing. So if I could then ask then, the notion of mental health in our justice system, what is it? Does it exist? Is it, out of sight, out of mind? And I don't mean this to be disrespectful to the prisoners, but I mean this that for us on this side of the fence, that we don't ignore them, that they're there by the grace of God go I, as it were. From your perspective, maybe, Dr. Johnson, may I ask you first?
So the concept of out of sight, out of mind, if I can speak frankly, is, I think...
Especially on Mondays,
I think that is very much the case. But I do think as a community it's very difficult to be able to acknowledge that the persons that are imprisoned are whole persons with real emotions and real thoughts and real futures and real goals. Because to do that would mean that we are taking some responsibility for having not helped them progress, or taking responsibility for hindering progression, or taking responsibility for ignoring that they were hurting or were searching for something that we may have been able to help with. So yeah, I do think partially it's out of sight, out of mind. Whether mental health exists in the criminal justice system, mental health exists everywhere. I guess it's just explaining to the general public that everyone has mental health in the same way that everyone has physical health, and you can be in good physical health or poor physical health. Mental health is on a similar continuum. You can be in good mental health and poor mental health, and that can happen within the same day. So just that being a blanket statement that mental health is a part of our everyday, functioning. Yeah,
and just to say, being incarcerated itself brings on certain stresses. So one, you're looking at loss of freedom. You're going into a place where you may or may not know anyone. A place that also has some rules, not necessarily, well, rules from the organization itself, but then there are also prison rules. And so between being incarcerated and trying to make that transition where you may have kind of settled, there's a lot of things are happening at that moment, and that gives rise to, as we said, it creates added stress, and we will start to see some of the mental health issues kind of really emerge from there. Some more severe, others mild, but at the same time, it does exist, and we also have to attend. Yeah,
so imagine feeling like you always have to survive, which probably was the case for many of the men and women before they came into prison. And so getting certain needs met, they had to go to antisocial routes to get those needs met, wound up in prison. And now in prison, because of those prison rules, so not the rules set by Her Majesty's Cayman Islands Prison Service, the rules set by the people that live there. You have to kind of try and survive in a new way, and then you leave again and have to survive again.
We either read books, watch documentaries or movies or the like, and we see prison culture, for want of a better term. We see these things and we probably hear, but we may not be as willing to accept or acknowledge that may exist here in our prison. And some of us wonder, well, does this hierarchy exist? You want protection, this is how you pay for it. You want to survive, this is who you associate with. Is that something that this society, isn't quite up to par with yet? Up to speed, understanding, acknowledging?
I'm looking to Mr. Brent
Yeah.
because you've had the inside
I was going to try to touch on something. Yeah, mental health does exist in the prison. What I've always found with my experience is the one individual has committed crimes, whatever he did to get there, is so angry. He becomes that self, for having to put himself through this, and for being so angry at self. And then you got these people telling him, "Oh, everything's gonna be just fine." And then he's leaving his kids, his mom, he's leaving his family on the road that are completely depending upon this individual. Because he may have been the breadwinner of the family, even though he was caught up in doing illegal activities. But what I've always experienced is watching these individuals on a daily basis, being in prison myself, is how frustrated and how angry they get at self. And that anger can reflect back in many different ways. And God knows if you and I are next to that individual when one of these moments are happening, because you're going to feel it.
Right. Yeah. So can we play a game? Would you be willing? Okay. So from time to time, I particularly try to engage in our discussions, and I keep saying this often. This monthly discussion on mental health, hopefully it's causing us as a people to understand that it's just health. Mental, physical, it's your spiritual, it's your financial. It's health. All, as I think Dr. Bourne and Dr. Johnson emphasized, it's all inclusive, all encompassing. Yes. So I got a couple of family friends, some students, some colleagues, co-workers, former, and non-incarcerated people. Okay. So they all of their own volition, all of legal age, and I asked them a couple of questions, and their responses either had to be, does this in your scenario a prison, or work, or board and school, right? Those are the three choices. And the questions were to the effect, well, you have to get up by a certain time, be somewhere and return. Which category is that? Work, prison, or board and school? Right? You're being told what to do and when to report work, prison, or board and school. You see where I'm going with this, right? And they're all the same.
Yes.
Right? The answer could apply to each one. And so the final question I asked was, then in that scenario, how is your overall health and well-being if you're being told, if you no longer feel that you have the control of your day? And it's amazing how some start to think, oh, I think I'm all of a sudden I'm this free adult, I can do what I want. But if I don't come to work by a certain time and do what I'm supposed to do, somebody, not just the boss, is going to tell me whichever. If I'm a student at boarding school, now I think Mr. Grace was not part of this survey, but he alluded to it earlier, right? You're being regulated as a prisoner more directly and more perhaps authority.
Well, what's prison? What's really prison? For me, being incarcerated, I guess you could look at it as a type of prison, but for me, I was in prison at one point. And at that particular time when I was there, I can honestly say that I felt more freer there than I did out here at the time. And I'll emphasize on that a little bit. I wanted to clean up my act. I wanted to clean up the things I was doing. I couldn't do that out here. Prison allowed me an opportunity to look at who I was, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go in life. So prison allowed me that opportunity to change my life. So I didn't really feel like I was in prison at the time. I felt like I was here to move forward. So prison for me then became what I would call a state of mind. I could be in prison in my mind.
Okay. So that Bob Marley song, emancipate yourself from
yes.
Isn't that where it comes to?
Yes.
But then respectfully, if I may ask then you,
sure.
perhaps from the professionals, you're physically, again, work, board and school are more important. Prison, because at work, if I decide to walk through the door, I may not have a job to come back to. But at prison, I don't think I can do that. There's going to be a consequence. I probably can't get through the sections to get outside, right, Dr. Brown?
I think you're highlighting the importance of some of the things that are important for when people come out of prison. In particular, I mean, I'm going to speak to juveniles because that's my experience. Step downs and how do they get back to the community? Because the difference in the example that you're saying, at least to me, is work and boarding school don't have the same repercussions.
Exactly.
And like, for example, I worked with one kid up in the States, and he was the brightest kid, and he wanted to know about how to get into psychology and how he could go for his doctorate and how he could help kids that, you know, made mistakes like he did. And I looked at him because I knew he was in for a drug charge, and I thought, he's never going to be able to, because student loans in the United States, a lot of times they won't let you get them if you've had a drug charge. So it's like, you know, where does this kid go? And I had one kid say to me, when I go back out, my gang friends are still there. I still am going to live on the same block with no electricity. I'm still going to be in the same community. I can't afford to just up and move to the, like, you know, the burbs. And then when if I'm in the burbs, people are looking at me like, who's this, you know, inner city kid chilling out in the suburbs? So it's like that whole step down process, I think, is super important, because while they may feel okay when they're in prison, that's the part that's really difficult, is the part getting out.
So that's what I'm asking. In our context in the Cayman, all right, I don't do this to be any which way, you know, inappropriate to our politicians, but just round the numbers up to 100,000, because it's easy statistic to say, you know, per capita of 100,000. So whatever our population is, then the prison population, whether we're 100, whether we're 1,000, is still a relatively small, manageable number. But that's one person whose life is difficult. So that transition, then, as we come back from the break, that transition from prison, is it harder? Depending on the charge, so you're there for drugs or some other offense against the person, or is it that it doesn't matter, or does it depend on who you are, which district you're from, or ethnicity? Are there things that are peculiar to that? If it's appropriate, perhaps we could speak to that. And with that, we'll pause, take our final break. When we come back, we invite you to be a part of our discussion.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
The new pier design achieves our government's mandate to minimize the impact on the environment. There will be no dredging in Hogstye Bay. This is a win for Cayman. Support our port. Support our tourism.
Looking forward, looking bright. Support our port. Support our tourism.
The record.
For the record, a fresh approach for information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you.
For the record.
Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location location for you just around the corner. And Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to Dr. Alexandra Borden, Mr. Brent Hydes, Dr. Colleen Brown, Dr. Larissa Johnson, and Mr. Hilton Grace for joining us for our monthly mental health matters as we look at the role of mental health within our justice system. We do have a caller online, and for those of us, I know you find us on the first Monday of each month. We will have one coming up again, God's willing, on the first Monday of next month, but sometimes it's so good we should have it more often. Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Well, yes. Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Moderator.
Good afternoon, my good friend. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, and a pleasant good afternoon to your highly esteemed panel.
Yes, sir.
I think it's quite appropriate that Mental Health Month follows on the heels of Recovery Month. Obviously, September is the month of recovery, and October is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think the symposium that was held at the Hartwell Theatre recently was a huge success and gave members of our society an opportunity to come out and add to the discussion, listen, and learn. I'm very pleased that the groundbreaking of the new facility in East End has happened. Mm-hmm. And why I've called, though, is I specifically want to highlight the work of the Hope for Today Foundation. It is so crucial for the public to know the work that is going on at that halfway house and how the society would be perhaps less fortunate without it. The Hope for Today Foundation continues to allow men in our society coming out of prison or coming out of a rehabilitation situation to spend time there, continue to work a program of recovery. If you have any mental health issues, those can be addressed as well, because I always say the onus is upon us as individuals to make sure that our physical health is intact, but also our mental health, make sure that that is intact. And there's certain things we need to do to ensure that we're living healthy, and that's taking our medications, seeing our doctor regularly, sleeping well, eating well, diet, exercise, all of that. And of course, having a good relationship with God, our spiritual health. So I am doing very well, and I thank God for that. And people say to me every time they see me, "You're looking well, Quincy, you're doing well." And I just want to say that as a part of my success story, it wouldn't be successful without Hope for Today Foundation. I thank them for being a part of my network of support, and that's all I've called to say.
Well, thank you, man. God bless you. Pray that you continue to keep it that way. Together we in this. Mr. Hydes, if start with you and the notion of the transition from being incarcerated, well, maybe shouldn't get ahead. Dr. Borden, you were talking earlier about being institutionalized, and some of us don't appreciate how part of the recidivism, we're accustomed to these things, we know where the four square is coming from, we're going to lay our head. Mm-hmm. Somebody makes a decision, his life is easier, relatively speaking.
Yeah, well, especially for people who've been in there since they were young adults. Some of them have never been adults in the real world. And so they've never learned how to be adults. And so they come out at 20, 30 something and are expected to know how to get a job, how to buy a house, how to have a family. And they've never had anyone there to show them that. And so growing up in the system like that often makes it difficult to transition outside if you don't have the proper supports in place. And that's where, this kind of bridging is really helpful, from going from prison to life in the community with support, like we have with the Hope Foundation, Bridge Foundation, and a lot of the counseling services available on island.
Actually, I got to emphasize doing. I have struggled with substance abuse for a very long time. What I've also recognized, though, is since the halfway houses has come into play, that's the Bridge and the Hope Foundation, there's been many individuals that have tried to find recovery. And until these halfway houses came into existence, these individuals today are whole, productive members of the community. Not only are they looking after themselves, but they're also trying to be of service to assist and to help others in this community. And for me, that's a wonderful thing. Of course, it took a team, to get them to where they're at. It wasn't just one particular entity or whatever it was. It took a whole team. And that's one of the things that I try to encourage. It's all of the entities that focus on the rehabilitation field. They need to sit down at a round table. They need to stop taking off on their personal agendas, looking creative for themselves, and they need to sit down with all of the entities in government and whatever field there is to sit down at a round table and figure out how we can best assist, put programs in place, put mechanisms in place to try to help these individuals. It takes all of us. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight some of the work that the prison itself has been doing. So there's a program called ROTL. It's Release on Temporary License, and that helps with the adjustment in terms of getting back into working. So for some people, as their transition, we have a facility called
Enhanced
Rehabilitation Unit. So it's a minimum security facility, and the persons who are there are usually attached to a particular government department. So there's that, and there are other people who are also going out and returning to the facilities. And so that is just one aspect of how we are transition in terms of jobs and getting familiar, getting up at a particular point in time, show up for work. Then we have some amount of groups that we run throughout the prison program. And importantly, they are not represented here today, but aftercare in terms of probation. And so the truth is, for someone to be truly reintegrated, it requires those institutions, but most importantly, the community and the extent to which, we can be cautiously optimistic, but sometimes the community deliberately shunned. And it depends also sometimes on the crime that was committed. But it requires all of us to really, as Brent has pointed out, to really come together and ensure that we can really reintegrate someone into society.
So let me be direct and ask that. We look at, again, as Hilton shared, it could be the person, it could be the type of crime, but we look at, say, financial crimes, and even if we just isolate initially to the U.S., we see some people who committed some financial fraud, or some goes to prison for a shorter or longer sentence, whereas a federal prison or something less serious, and then they're out and they're on their talking circuit, they're traveling the world. They seem to have a semblance of freedom and notoriety of celebrity or what have you. Then even in the Cayman context, maybe in the wider Caribbean. But then there are others who gone for a spliff of ganja, who may have gotten a fight. Not going to be dismissive of the seriousness of any of those, but for some reason they can't even get a job working in the most hidden of places just to get on with their lives. Dr. Johnson, jump in there, because please.
I think it goes back to thinking about the whole person, and typically people who commit quote-unquote white-collar crimes were already in a position in which they were quite okay. They probably had quite a good support system. They were probably physically and mentally well, and probably had access to education and higher education. But then they got caught for this indiscretion. When you look at the majority of the prison population, these are individuals who have quite similar backgrounds to Mr. Brent's. Their socialization process, so how they were raised in their family home, there may have been a lot of dysfunction in the home, there may have been abuse that took place, the things that they are exposed to. So these ways of learning that aren't necessarily safe start out from a very young age, and that's what we see later on when they come into prison. So I think the circumstances, the environment someone is in, plays a really large role in kind of the trajectory of their life, really. And then, so it's really easy for a person who had everything going for them before to leave prison and have everything picked back up. But if you didn't have those resources, so that support, access to work, access to education beforehand, it's going to be even harder for you after you leave to try and access that. So because someone else who had all that before can just reach out, whereas other people don't have that luxury.
And always remember, it's easier to go back to the old behavior than to do a little work and change.
But then if you have that network, as Dr. Johnson shared, you before you go in, okay, there's the wealth, there's the education, there's the health, there's all these things, but you have a network, a base, a support for that young individual, as Dr. Borden shared, who's been incarcerated, maybe for a spliff, and then a burglary, and then an assault, and then just recidivism. This is the life that they know.
Yes.
And when they come back out, we look at them with scorn and contempt. We don't employ them.
This place is not very forgiving. And that's the bottom line. If you commit a crime and came on, you may carry that around for the rest of your life.
But does that depend on who you are, though?
Yes. Yes, you're so right. Depends on what school, what university, and all that good stuff that you went to, and what color your skin is. But you see, addiction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter you're black, white, green,
rich
or
or
what
poor.
color house you live in, or how big it is. Addiction will take you down.
Okay, so, and I appreciate you guys allowing us to have this discussion today, and hopeful as a public we start to appreciate that it's not just government, it's not just the building, not just the money, but it is us as the family, as the community. In closing then, maybe I can go this way. I'll be counterclockwise. Start with Mr. Grace, then come on and finish. Two things. What we, as the wider public, whether you want to call it tough love, whether we just be as accommodating, as family, as friends, as prospective employers, policymakers, what we can and should be doing in order to make this integration a much. But then secondly, is it a way that we can employ prevention, being better than cure, to actually not get to that point where we're having people enter prison in the first place?
Starting with the last question first. We have to invest in our youth, invest in sport, education, recreational activities, and all of that, so that we can really divert and we can inspire young people to do things differently. Less of them will get in trouble. The private sector in particular, I know the government has been making some efforts in terms of rehiring some persons. Again, it also depends on the nature of a person's crimes. And there's a real thing. So, for example, a sex offender, we don't want that person in a position where they'll have access to children. So the government has been hiring people at various levels. The private sector, in partnership with the prisons as well, they have been doing some. But we want additional companies to say, hey, can we jump on a particular program? Can we commit to hiring 2 or 3 persons per year on a trial basis? And some have been doing that, but certainly we would like that pool to be widened so that persons can get work. So working is one. Again, some of the support services for them to be available and sometimes to more reach out in the communities. Hope is very much based in the community. A lot of the other support services are more central, and so I believe there needs to be they need to actually be going into communities, satellite districts.
Yeah, sorry, just to piggyback off that, because I think when people see that community support, then they'll probably be more likely to want to join in on that. So that leads on to my answer to both those questions, which I hope it doesn't get dismissed very easily, but it's compassion. And, we run a course on compassion at the prison currently. We define it as the acknowledgement of one's suffering or the suffering of others, and the commitment to try and relieve that suffering. And I think that is an integral part of prevention, but also when someone leaves prison, showing them the compassion, listening to someone, as much as possible without judgment, so that you are more likely to offer them opportunities. And opportunities doesn't necessarily mean work, although that's very helpful. Opportunities mean opportunities for support, opportunities to be exposed to positive social interactions, where they can build a positive support network. So yeah, compassion.
Hey, that is important. Dr. Brown?
I think that I agree what you guys were saying about investing in youth. In the recent National Drug Council survey, 1 in 3 youths stated that they have been exposed to either domestic violence, community violence, physical, sexual abuse, all these different things. Those type of experiences, which are deemed as early childhood, adverse childhood experiences, tend to lead to further problems later in life, which could be physical health, mental health, and one of the precursors for incarceration. So therefore, getting at the kids early and having them receive mental health help when they need it, getting them to have strong social networks is extremely important. And we need to lower the stigma, because if 1 in 3 are experiencing this, that's a third of the population. So there's no reason to have stigma, and there needs to be more compassion.
Indeed. Mr. Hides, your thoughts, final thoughts.
Man,
yeah, man.
Dwayne has been my experience. Where I spend some time and try to do something about it now. Because today in Cayman we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to put a dent in crime, to work on the mental health, to put highlight some of the negative stigma that's around all these issues. We otherwise are going to pay for it a little bit now, or we're going to pay a hell of a lot more later on.
That is true. Dr. Warden?
I would say that prevention's better than a cure. So I agree with everyone. I think that supporting the youth and intervening earlier is often more helpful. I think a lot of blame or emphasis or responsibility is put on the prison for fixing people, when really none of this should have happened. And so, yes, there are going to be some people who continue to make those decisions, but a lot of it could be headed off earlier. So I'd say if you know anyone who's struggling, whether kid, teen, or even an adult, the government does provide free counseling services, which is awesome, and that's through the Counseling Center. They can be reached at 949-8789. Obviously, any emergencies, the hospital is always an option too. So anyone who's dealing with anything, whether mental health or just life in general or stress, there is help out there. So whether it's you or someone you know or someone that's around you, let them know that there is help out there.
Thank you all very much.
Speak up.
And certainly appreciate it. And with a question, we'll have this continued dialogue. And as a populace, maybe we can look at this from the perspective that there's a role for us. Exercise compassion. Let's be our brother's keeper, and let's appreciate that they are the whole person. So enjoy the rest of the week. I trust this will be one filled with much greatness. To our listeners, tomorrow, please join us. We have a scheduled discussion with our friends from the National Gallery to talk about the Wendell Hides. That's going to be amazing. And some other things to take out the program. Yeah. He's a friend of yours. Fine. And then, got something on the store for Wednesday as well, as we talk about the pro-port position. Well, until then, be blessed.
Yes. Thank you.